No, yes. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Bristol Town Council meeting of December 18th, 2024. If you could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Can you hear me?
I don't, you know what?
We're just going to take a moment, just make sure the microphone is on.
Like it twice.
Just a little Christmas,
It's pretty, yeah.
Yeah. little Christmas time. Huh? Let's not forget that.
Test one. Hello? Test one. Hello? Nothing.
December 18th. Got it. Oh, wow. Look at
Feedback.
this. Holy mackerel.
Test one.
You got it.
Hello?
Yeah.
You can hear it a little. Yeah, there it is.
Okay.
Excellent. You guys can hear? Perfect.
Okay.
I can hear you too.
Enough buttons, it was bound to work.
Can you, as long as everybody can hear, that's all that matters. So, welcome. So let me just one thing is, Councilman Sweeney is not here tonight. He is out of town. We tried to amend our schedule to, potentially move this meeting around, but we were unable to because there were some, important things that needed to be on the agenda. He wanted to be here, but could not. So thank you for that. And if I may, before we start, the regular meeting, if I could have a motion to add recognizing a few members who have passed, a few board members that have passed.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So I'm just going to take a quick moment and recognize Dave Simos, who just recently passed away. He was on the zoning board for quite some time, and that is not the only thing he did for Bristol. He's actually been a big part of the community and also in multiple social programs. Has given back a lot, and our thoughts and prayers go to his family and friends. Second, Joe DeMello just passed away, and we're going to talk about that in the agenda also as an open seat is available, but also wanted to recognize him. He was on the rec board for quite a while, and actually was on the rec board after talking with Tony back in the 80s too, on the original rec board, if I got that correct.
When I
So,
was chair at the time.
yeah.
He was also on the Water Authority, I believe, wasn't he?
Yes.
Thank you, Mary. So, and this is kind of a reoccurring theme here. There are not just these three gentlemen, there's one more. A lot of people that get involved with the town and the community do not get involved just in one aspect of it. It's usually multiple aspects. And so, again, our thoughts and prayers go to Joe's family and his friends. And lastly, John Faria, who just passed away recently too. He was on our senior housing board, Bristol Senior Housing Board, for a very long time. He was also actually on the town council quite a long time ago. He was our first administrator. It was a pre-elected position. It was when the chairman was also the administrator. He was also a state senator. As you can tell, I know a bit about him because John was also a close friend of mine. He was the chairman of the Democratic Committee for quite a long time. But all three gentlemen gave back to the community, and our thoughts and prayers go to John's family and his friends and to all of their families and their friends. Thank you. I wanted to give my colleagues an opportunity to also share. No.
Just very briefly, I mean, you said it all very, very nicely, but it's so important to recognize those individuals who have given so much to the community, because sometimes it's forgotten. It's just, let's move on. But the recognition this evening, it's certainly very important to stress that. And as you pointed out, they were involved in many facets of the community. I know with David Simons specifically, he was a great member of the Knights of Columbus. He provided a great service. And as a brother, I recall many times, he was quite a mentor when I first joined the Knights of Columbus. Yeah.
I just wanted to say the same. I mean, they're a big loss to our town and obviously to their families, but certainly the town and our boards. All three were great guys, all had great opinions. And they served the town well, and they served them in different, they were also dedicated in many instances to their church, to their community, like you said, like Knights of Columbus with Dave and other things like that. So it's really sad to see that sort of happen in such a relatively short period of time, probably within like 6 weeks, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's, it often happens like that.
I
It's-
know, yeah.
My
three in
wife
a
talks
row.
about it happens in threes.
Yeah, I know. I don't
uh,
like to be reminded of that, but
This council also talks about how the success today was built off the efforts of the past. And these three gentlemen were part of those efforts in the past to get us to what we think Bristol to be, which it's an outstanding community. So again, thank you all for that, adding it to it, and our thoughts and prayers go to their families and friends. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda.
Make a motion that we approve it.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Mary to approve. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item of business is the submission of minutes from previous meetings. We have the town council meeting minutes from November 20th. We have the town council executive session meeting minutes from November 20th. And we also have the town council reorganizational meeting minutes from December 4th.
Make a motion to approve all three.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Mary to approve as stated. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item of business is ordinance C1. This is ordinance number 2024-21, chapter 17, offenses and miscellaneous provisions to Article 2, alcoholic beverage establishments, section 17-82. And this is to reduce the number of full liquor licenses from 33 to 32, first reading.
Make a motion to be considered first reading.
second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Mary as stated. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is, pardon me.
2024-23.
22, and this is chapter 8, boats, docks, and waterways, section 8-55, transient anchoring and anchorages, section 8-57, mooring inspections, section 8-60, this is mooring permits, section 8-64, permitting of slips at town docks, section 8-66, additional requirements for commercial mooring permits, section 8-70, permitting of dinghy spaces, section 8-71, parking permits for dock holders, section 8-72, dock user agreement, section 8-73, dock mooring forfeiture, and section 8-74, standard of reviewing for forfeiture appeals, first reading.
That old chestnut. Huh? Yeah.
Could you repeat that, please? Okay, now, I make a motion to consider this first reading.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Mary, that this constitutes first reading. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next agenda item is F1. This is Michael Javeri from 26 Tanglewood Drive, Riverside, and this is in regards to permitting overnight parking at the Marina Ferry Dock parking lot during the winter off-season for non-residents, and there's a recommendation from Harbor Master Marsili.
Is Michael here?
Yeah.
Please. Before you start, I just wanted to share a couple of things. First is that you should know this council has a positive recommendation to take the next step here. That step is to make available up to 23 spots designated by the harbor master. Side note on that one is we picked them that would be an appropriate place for longer term parking and also to make snow removal more advantageous. But the recommendation is to move forward with it for myself, and I think my colleagues are in the same place. It seems like an appropriate thing to do for multiple reasons, including helping out the residents of Prudence Island. So please.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Could you state your name and address for the record?
Yes, Michael Thomas Javery, address 26 Tanglewood Drive, Riverside, Rhode Island.
Thank you.
I'm also a resident of Prudence Island. This petition is an economic issue that pertains to the lifeline of the ferry. A group of commuters who arrive early in the morning on the Bristol Ferry dock. It includes professional service employees who earn their livelihood on the mainland as public school teachers, firefighters, nurses, and state workers. They also have jobs that do not allow telecommuting. They have jobs that better our communities and the state. Parking on most streets in Bristol is now prohibited, and these hardworking Rhode Islanders need to walk close to a mile to get to their cars to earn a livelihood and contribute to our state. This isn't just about commuters, though. It's also an economic issue for the town of Bristol. Local business owners are appreciative of the relationship they have with the Prudence Island commuters, and they bring revenue daily to stores, businesses, and services, and restaurants. This relationship creates a good economy in the winter for the town of Bristol. So not to mention, the petition poses a concern for 1/2 dozen of students of all ages from grade school to college who live on Prudence Island but attend school on the mainland. A concern that puts the well-being of their education in jeopardy with various school starting times and long bus waits. Most students need to be transported to school by car. Finally, the winter is just about to start, and we're ready to seeing temperatures drop below zero in the early hours of the morning. And this creates a significant burden during the winter with frigid cold weather and icy sidewalks. And as a retired Providence fire captain, I've seen my fair share of cases of hypothermia and illness related to prolonged exposure to cold weather. This isn't just about parking, it's a safety concern. In order to prevent hypothermia, frostbite for the commuters. Bristol residents are not always happy with people parking near their homes, and use of the Marina Ferry parking lot off-season keeps the commuter cars contained in a nearly empty parking lot far away from the residents. A common sense solution that works for everyone. And I respectfully ask you to permit overnight parking during the off-season in the Marina Ferry parking lot. And thank you for your consideration on this matter.
Thank you. I need a couple of points of clarity, if I may, not from you, sir, but what's in front of us was through the 31st. I also reached out to the solicitor prior to the meeting. Typically, something like this would require a ordinance change, first and second reading, such and so forth. This does not. So this needs a resolution from the council.
Yes.
And it is something that would expire, and this is where I needed some clarity on it. It says here March 31st, which is fine. I just wanted to make sure that it is a little bit before the marina opens up, so we're not in any kind of issues. And I'm kind of looking at Greg on this one, Greg Marzilli, the harbor master. If you could just kind of weigh in on that, I just want to make sure that that date, if not that date, a couple of days either way, or we're in a good place.
Sure. The recreational boating season starts April 15th. Most of the commercial fishermen come back middle of March.
Okay.
So
that's more than doable then.
more than doable, yeah.
Okay.
And then we can do any repair work and not have to sit through 1,000 cars while we're trying to do that stuff.
And if you could, one of the largest hurdles, I would say, was DEM approval. Could you just really quickly just hit on that and why we needed DEM approval to talk about a parking space?
So it actually came back from CRMC that they don't control our parking in the off season. So we can make our own decision.
And therein lies why we can do this, right?
Yes.
So,
So, but yeah, DM, they were fine with it as well. They don't really have much to say about it.
Perfect.
For the off-season
And
stuff.
we've got approximately 50 spots there. Of those, we're allocating 23 for the use that's being discussed right now, which means that at least half, more than half, are available to Bristol residents too.
Yes.
So
So
perfect.
we only have a half dozen fishermen still active until the end of January, then they take some time off and we just ask that we take the snowman parking lot, and move it across the street to the new lot on Thames and Church.
Say that again, please.
The
I missed that
parking ban-
part.
The parking ban lot.
Yep.
Last couple of years has been on the ferry lot.
Okay.
Now
And
that
we'll
we
move
have
it across to the new
moved that
lot.
across the street.
Okay.
This way, what happens is people come down there and park in the winter in the middle section of that lot. And God forbid we ever had to get a fire truck, an ambulance, anything
Gotcha.
onto the fair, we can't get in there.
Gotcha.
So, and it easily would plow.
The administrator nodded in agreement and sounds like he's got that handled. Council, questions?
The question is how these folks be qualified for the spots. I mean, is it first come, first served type of thing? Because if you have 23 spots, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure. I mean, I know I walk by there 5 days a week and I see how many people come out of the ferry on a regular basis. But with that being said, I'm sure there's some folks that don't do a daily trip, so,
Yeah, we don't have all the details worked out yet. You know, we're gonna need a couple days to get signs put up. We got a number of spots, get parking.
But it will
tags
be,
made.
it'll be in essence, first come, first serve, and up
First-
to 23 spaces available for this express purpose. And if I'm correct, please correct me if I'm wrong, we're gonna have some stickers made up for those vehicles and that vehicle and right, if you're renting a spot. So it'll be very clear. And it'll also be on where we already needed permitted spots,
That's correct.
meaning that if I'm a Bristol police officer and I go there at 2 a.m, I can clearly see this is designated parking and there'll be stickers on the
Yeah,
vehicles.
we're gonna go with the hanging tags in the river mirror for
Gotcha.
now. We'll never get stickers made in time to start this January 1 per se.
Sounds reasonable.
So
Okay.
we're gonna go with the hanging ones we use for temporary parking passes now, and then, we'll go from there.
So I imagine there's some people that, if you said they're nurses and so forth, they would be working different shifts, right?
Yes.
Do you have any ideas? So that's going to be, it doesn't really matter if they're there overnight, for example.
No.
Yeah, they are overnight spots. That's a great point.
Yeah.
So
There will be overnight spots,
Okay,
and
great.
we'll work with the police department for enforcement.
Thank you.
Does the petitioner have a sense of how many people are going to be needing some of these spots?
Well, from my understanding, there's about 15 daily commuters, but there are a few people that come over for therapy, doctor's visits, things like that. And the last ferry is about 5:30, so if they have a late appointment, they can't make it back.
Thank you.
so we can work those. We can be accommodating through the harbor department with the harbor master. So long as it's reasonable, those things sound very doable. So.
Yeah.
So if there's no more questions, Mr. Solicitor, if you could walk us through the resolution motion.
Not sure if this is working or not.
Your voice carries, it's okay.
Okay, there aren't a lot of people here this
Yeah.
evening, so, as you alluded to earlier, this will only take a resolution. The reason for that is you already have an ordinance in place. It's section 16-382 entitled Prudence Ferry Parking. And it permits you to set rates and other things. So we're gonna do that by resolution. What my recommendation is that, your harbor master, Greg Marsili, provided you with a memo dated December 11th. It sets forth, all of the various, suggestions on the 23 spaces, $150 per space, the dates, December 1 to March 31, eligibility, et cetera, et cetera. So the motion I would recommend is to adopt a resolution approving the Prudence Island off-season parking policy as set forth in the Harbor Master's memo to the Town Council dated 12/11/24.
Mr. Chairman, that's what I said. So
yes.
move it.
Outstanding. Nice job, Tony. Is there a second?
Yeah.
All right. So motion made by Tony as stated, seconded by Mary. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is G1. This is Recreation Board. This is 1 3-year term, unexpired term set to expire March 2026. And this is a memo regarding the passing of Mr. Joe DeMello.
Mr. Chairman, you've already acknowledged the passing, so I would ask that we advertise for the position.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Aaron as stated. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is C2. This is Coastal Resource Management Council Representative, and this is for 1 year unexpired term set to expire January 2026. We have John Triano with interest in reappointment and Kevin Manuel with interest in appointment.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I know, John, normally we just reappoint if there's not an issue. However, what I would ask, this young man, Kevin Manuel, I was looking over his resume, very impressed about it. I would ask that we actually interview and ask John, not for an interview, but come in as well and share what has transpired, from the time that he's been appointed.
I must admit that I am unfamiliar with Coastal Resource Management Council representative responsibilities. So I would appreciate that. I would like to know more about it. So, council? Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
All right. I took that as a motion, Tony.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Aaron, as stated. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is G3. This is the Bristol Housing Authority. This is for one 5-year unexpired term set to expire January 2030. And this is Donna St. Angelo with interest in reappointment. And we also have a recommendation from the Bristol Housing Authority Executive Director.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we appoint Donna based on the recommendation, but also the time of service that she already provided.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Mary, as stated. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And this is the part where I say from the council, thank you. Not only to the people that were here on the agenda this evening, but all of our boards and commissions and the efforts and the energies that they give back to the community, especially around this time of year, and we appreciate that. So, but all times of year, and typically it happens that they're away from their family and friends on a Monday or Wednesday or Thursday at 7, doing things that are so important to make this community move forward, and this council appreciates it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is I1. This is public notice from DEM, Office of Water Resource, and this is in regard to the town of Bristol for Gibson Road, which requires a response by January 2nd.
Diane, anything? I'm leaning on you on this one. I know, is Greg gone? Yeah, okay. So Diane or Mr. Administrator, anything that we need to weigh in on this?
I don't have the notice in front of me, but if they're asking for recommendations, I would recommend that you support this application. This will be one of the end of road projects that my department's working on with the harbor master to improve the public access to that portion of the bay.
So it's a town project,
It is a
really?
town project.
Mhm.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve it.
It's the,
Oh, recommend, I'm sorry. Recommend approval.
And if we could approve it, we would. Right.
We don't need them.
Is there a second on that? I didn't hear a second. I'm sorry.
I think
Aaron?
Aaron did.
Aaron, all right. So Tony made the motion. Aaron seconded that as stated. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is I2. This is Bond Counsel MAC, and this is in regard to the Town of Bristol borrowing resolution. And this is in for a bond to borrow and issue bonds up to $2 million.
Hi, Sandy.
Hello. We have 2 resolutions tonight instead of 1, and you ask why. It's because there are 2 separate kinds of projects that the town is ready to implement and needs funds. In order to access SRF funds, you need to have had in an application and also a DEM consent or of approval. And only with those 2 in place can you do the financing. So the resolution for 2.5 million, which is I3, all those steps are in place. And so as soon as I discuss this one, we'll be voting on that one. The one that's before you tonight, though, we're midway in that process. The administrator called me and said, we need to, we're ready to do this water quality project. It's the Silver Creek Watershed Study. We're ready to go. It's for flood mitigation, capital improvements to the stormwater basins at Highview Drive in Varnum, where I grew up. And basically all that was required as part of that Silver Creek Watershed Study. Diane Williamson has tried to get DEM's attention on this. We think that it should qualify, or at least some of the projects should qualify for subsidized funds through the SRF fund, but we haven't gotten DEM's response. Rather than go out for a public bid, Diane Williamson, the administrator, and I had a meeting with Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, and we found out that they have a stormwater lending program for just projects like this, that either fall through the cracks or that DEM doesn't consider to be part of the SRF program. So because we want to get this before you and get approval, and because we want to get out to the market while the interest rates are favorable, what the council to the infrastructure bank and I decided is that we would put these two resolutions before you. The 2 million, if it qualifies for SRF, it is not more favorable for you, but more favorable for the infrastructure bank that it go through SRF because there's federal matching funds. If, however, it doesn't qualify because DEM does not give their stamp of approval, you can go out with another program of Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank. You can still get a subsidized rate. It'll be a lot easier than dealing with DEM. And so that's why we have it in two separate resolutions. To further complicate matters, I've made the resolutions such that you can mix and match, if you will. So both of these resolutions are for separate projects, and that's where they end. And the fact that there's a $500,000 difference, but they both are with Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank. They're both with a subsidized loan program, and they're both projects ready to be implemented by the town. So the motion for the 2 million would be for a financing with the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank for up to $2 million.
So let's stop there just for a moment. Mr. Administrator, could you please just take a quick moment? I think this is a tremendous thing that's happening. And I think it's worthy of speaking specifically to the phase 1, phase 2, and what it's going. I know, Sandy, you touched on it. I'd love the public to know more about this.
So the $2 million that's Ms. Mack spoke about with the SRF funds, that we know we're going to go with the SRF funds, that's for the Sherry Avenue in Varnum watershed, which we've been working on for many years. Actually, it goes back to 20 years ago. We found the original plans. We're finally ready. We've had multiple meetings with DEM, the infrastructure bank, and we're trying to get them to approve it as a water quality project. We haven't gotten that stamp of approval yet, and the time keeps going on here. The last meeting we had with Ms. Mack in the infrastructure bank, they said there is some additional, there's an additional program with stormwater management that is one of those catch-all grant programs, which is the same benefits. For the town, it's still subsidized loan program. So if we don't hear back from DM, we wanted to get ready and go with this construction this summer coming. That's our only big project for this coming summer. So we wanted to get it done this summer. So we're ready to go. The plans are just about done, and we're hoping to get the $2 million approved, the resolution approved tonight for the $2 million for that project.
And this is phase 1 of phase 2.
Right. So this would be the improvements and capacity improvements at the detention basin on the end of Highview Avenue. We cleaned it out last fall. Needs a lot of work. It needs to be enlarged. The water starts up there on Highview, goes through like King Street, Waterman Avenue, down Sherry Avenue, sheet flows down Varnum Street, and just keeps going all the way down to the Silver Creek. So what we're trying to do is start way up top. We want to improve the Highview Basin, and then the Varnum Street, when you go down the end of Varnum Street off of Ferry, very end to the left in the backyard there on the west side, there's another detention basin in there. It's kind of hidden in there. We want to get in there and again, enlarge it, put some forebays in for water cleaning and enhancement, and it'll hold more capacity. Another part of this is there'll be new structures and piping up on Sherry Avenue. The road will be widened a little bit. The poles may have to be moved. Then there's going to be a new 24-inch pipe that'll go between the yards. We're going to enlarge the pipe there for more capacity from Sherry to Varnum. Then we're going to improve the structures and connect the structures with a gate on Varnum Street to help control some of that water. This would be phase 1. There's actually phase 2 for a later year. We get additional funds that'll go further south on Sherry past the curve, and further south on Varnum Street to capture more of the water. But we have a huge flooding problem. It's been happening for many years. So that's the first resolution
But
for the 2 million.
Mr. Chairman?
2 phases.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So the
Not
other,
for- Not 3, I just want to.
Right.
We
No,
don't have a third one in there, right?
right, so
Let's
that's,
not do 3.
right, so that's really a drainage project. So the first $2 million resolution is for a drainage project through SRF Infrastructure Bank.
And we'll hold off on the explanation on the second one. But
Yep.
Sandy, could you walk us, so you were in the middle of helping us with the motion, if
Yes.
we so choose, and go ahead.
I just want to just modify your explanation one bit. It's not SRF unless DEM approves it. So this is the drainage lending program. And it really doesn't matter for anything other than clarification that we need one more level of approval for it to go through SRF.
And for clarity with everyone, SRF,
Is
State Revolving
Fund, and
Funds.
there's federal matches to that. And so, of course, the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank would want to use those funds first, and they save this other lending program for those projects that have water quality and drainage to them, but for whatever reason, didn't qualify under DEM. So they're very, very strict in terms of the application. So this resolution would be to borrow up to $2 million. It would be under section 4512(2) of the general laws. It would allow the project, as so aptly described by the town administrator, but in less shorthand in the resolution. And then it would authorize the town treasurer and the chairman of the town council to approve the interest rate at a private sale with the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank and to borrow for this project. So the motion would be to accept the borrowing resolution in the form presented.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Sandy, in terms of the length of the SRF, the State Revolving Fund loan, what's the length of that usually?
They're both 20 years.
They're both 20, that is 20 years and then the bond's 20
Yes.
years. Okay.
And they both have the subsidized rate, which is why
Okay.
it's favorable to the town. And they also have the provision that you don't need to borrow it all up front and pay the interest all up front. You only draw on the loan when you have the project. So if you had some planning that could be done now in the winter and you want to get that going, you would draw for that. And then when it's time for the construction in spring, you could then draw later. So
Okay.
you don't have you have access to the full 2 million, but you can take it in installments and cut your interest cost.
So is there any major difference between the SRF and then the bond? Just difference in name only or?
No, well, it's the source of the funds that come.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, the
funds that come
SRF
from-
is
yeah.
probably coming from some bond that the state's doing, right? Somewhere.
Yes,
Yeah.
and also a federal match, whereas this second program is internal state funds only.
Okay.
And it's a revolving fund as well, in the sense that when you repay the bond and the interest, it's then lent out to other communities for other like projects. So that revolving happens this as well, but it's just, the best way to explain it is that when DEM does not approve a project to meet the qualifications of the federal government under SRF, we can borrow under this program. And it hasn't been used really. This is, sort of maybe 1 or 2 years, so.
Uncharted waters, if you will. Yes, you're welcome.
Clean.
Can I just ask Sandy, so where is this project in regards to the DEM approval? Has it been submitted?
It's been submitted, and I will say that they did approve in the last SRF bond issue, they did approve a portion of that financing for planning of this project. So it is water quality and a portion of the project should come under the SRF, which is why we have the 2 resolutions. Diana's been following up religiously every week. And I think that the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank is probably going to help push along DEM because it's in their interest that the DEM approval be in place, then we can do just one loan agreement with all the projects in it.
So if I understand correctly, it doesn't really make much difference to us. We're doing the
Correct.
project one way or the other, but they would stand to get matching funds to their organization.
Correct.
Not to us. Okay.
Correct. And this is sort of a catch, I think, Councilman Texera said it's a catch-all. It's kind of what it is. It's when you don't fall in those other technical areas, but it's a high priority for the state because it's resilience, it's water quality, and it's removing drainage. All of these are front and center for all the communities in Rhode Island because of just the increase in flooding over time. So this second pool of money is not as large as the SRF, so they want to use it sparingly, only when they have to.
Right.
Treasurer Carulli, I know that I asked you this and talked with the administrator liberally. Could you just share with the council, we've got some bonds dropping off. So what does this look like in the future?
Yeah, sure. So this year, one bond will drop off for $1 million. And then next year, we have a bond dropping off for 3.6 million. So a total of almost 4.5, a little over 4.5 million.
So it
dropping off
kind of
within the next
mirrors,
12 months.
closely mirrors what's going on.
Pretty
That's correct.
closely, pretty even.
Other questions from the council?
Just very briefly comment, I mean, the administrator already stated, this has been ongoing discussion for quite a few years, and I know the residents of the area, even when I said here, they reminded me quite often, when you're going to do something about it. So I'm thrilled to see that we actually moving forward with this, and it certainly alleviates many issues in the neighborhood.
Agreed. Any other comments from the council? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Don't move, Sandy.
Second is, I've already introduced it.
I'm going to let the clerk, please.
Sorry. The next item on the agenda is I3. This is Bond Council MAC, and this is in regards to the town of Bristol borrowing resolution for up to 2.5 million.
Welcome back, Sandy.
Thank you. This one is your typical SRF borrowing. It's for up to 2.5 million. The projects include upgrades to the compost facility, odor control, lighting, miscellaneous site improvements to meet federal and state standards, upgrades to the sewer collection system and solids handling, miscellaneous upgrades to the wastewater treatment plant. But this has to do with the settling tank, the RBCs, aerated grit chambers. They're very specific projects. And this other component also is for the RBC odor control exhaust fans and piping. And then the last part of the borrowing is for design and evaluation of permanent abandonment and removal of the Ferry Road pumping station and Ferry Road shoreline gravity sewer interceptor and design of a collection system for that area.
Let's do what we just did. We have the Water Pollution Director, Jose Da Silva, and Engineer Chris Cronin here. Is there anything that you would like to add on? I'm certainly going to ask the council if they have any questions. Anything that you need to add on this? No? Okay. Council, what questions?
The ferry road, I'm interested in hearing a little bit more, if you don't mind
No.
expanding that. I'm somewhat familiar with the area, but it would be interesting. What is the plan going forward?
The Ferry Road Pump Station was actually, that shoreline interceptor was put in under the WPA back in the 30s. And it's right there on the shoreline, and as we know, so climate change and such, that pump station is only about 7 feet above sea level. And a couple of the recent storms, last year's storm was within 2 feet of being flooded. It's only a matter of time before it does happen. Several years ago, we improved the ferry main going to the university. And when that was increased in size, because of the way the university just increased in size, so we needed to upsize that main pipe. While Ferry Road was open, we already saw this possibility. We brought laterals to 20, correct me if it was 26 or 23 properties.
Take
So
just a
that,
moment, just laterals to properties, just for
well,
clarity
what
on
it
that.
is the sewer main on Ferry Road, the shoreline side that had access to that shoreline main. What we did was we brought a stub off the road onto the property line. So if this ever occurred that we abandon it, we're not digging up the road anymore. Those connections for those homes are already there, they're marked, they're known
Outstanding
where they are.
forethought.
So we're
Good.
prepared for it. It's just
south of Van Winkle, that would have to have something done.
And can you, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Tony, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, would that be part of this plan though?
That would be part of the discussion of preparing for what we would be doing in the future. And I'm sure it would have to be a discussion with the homeowners, with the administration, and what would.
So for clarity though, this just, I think, Tony, I think this may kind of speak right to what you're talking about. This is not doing it. This is
just
looking at what would,
Okay.
what are the steps to do it, what the cost would be, what are the effects of it, correct?
Exactly. And this is all being part of the state wants planned put for the future. So this is just, you know, we're saying the best course of action is probably to abandon that.
Gotcha.
Much clear, thank you.
You're welcome.
So,
Mr. Minister?
so DEM during our annual permitting, they're trying to get us to reduce the volume of water that we treat. And we always hear that term, inflow and infiltration. So part of this, bond, part of the 2.5 million is you heard collection system upgrades. So those are the pipes around town. We're trying to seal them so that we're not getting groundwater, we're not getting, sump pump water in there. Big problem is, and I think Jose said it, that Ferry Road main at high tide, we're actually treating seawater. DEM is aware of it. We need to eliminate it eventually. So this money that we're looking for, a portion of the 2.5 million is to have a consulting engineer figure out a plan on how we're gonna do that. Jose had mentioned the laterals are already in place on Ferry Road. There's one issue, we have Van Winkle that is downhill, so that won't work. So that we have to put some type of a pump to get it uphill. So that's part of the study. So that's what it is not to implement anything at this point. It's to get a plan to move forward in the future.
Could you also speak to, we were talking before the meeting, I happen to live in and around the vicinity of the sewer treatment plant, or water pollution control, and there were some strong odors there recently. Part of the discussion, or part of this bond, includes headers, diffusers, but maybe you can just take one quick sec on that, and just say that you've made some improvements and some adjustments there. So
Yes, the new equipment was all new to us. It was also a learning curve. The levels within the tank, because what was happening, you had a blending tank, air pumped into it to make it fresh, keep it fresh. And then we had blowers that were sucking that out and putting it through an odor system, a carbon system. The levels were too high, the blower's too strong. That was like a mist. We were pumping a fog through that carbon. It wet that carbon and it just solidified. And rather than blowing through it, it blew around it. So the odors just weren't being taken care of. And like,
see the Hollywood that we deal with here in town, isn't this just absolutely, but so important though.
Yeah,
And when
so
it
then-
doesn't work
it
correctly.
doesn't work correctly,
Yeah.
and this is very specialized equipment, and the supply chain and such, as we were doing the best we could and as quickly as we could, and eventually we got it, and we put in some other fail safes in there. We got a VFD control, so we can control those blowers, so they're not going 100%. We can regulate it a little lower. We put in a water separator to try to collect that mist and remove that possibility of water getting to the carbon.
Gotcha.
So, and then what is implemented within the plant is for some other improvements of the odor systems we already have.
So it'll continually get better. So, okay.
Yes.
Council?
I think we should get credit for that. I mean, if we can avoid, the filters getting ruined, and we need to patent that and turn that back into funding for the improvements. No, just kidding.
Jose was trying to figure out how to do it. That's what,
Yes.
I could see him working on it. So
I'm just working back, just like he does to us. He speaks in some terms. Sometimes you go, what? Okay, yes, no, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jose.
Any more questions from the council? No?
And Sandy, on this one, the same funding sources, right?
Thank you, gentlemen.
That's I just want to clarify. I know you touched on it,
Rhode
but,
Island Infrastructure
Yeah.
Bank is the source of the lending, yes.
okay. So it was like pretty much like $4.5 million of loans
Exactly.
split into two is what you were saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Sandy, help us with the motion if you would.
I just want to say one thing. When I start these resolutions, I ask for a description from these two gentlemen. And what comes back to me, what they just said, seemed very different.
Well, because they get to speak plainly.
Right, right.
That's right. So
Any event, so the motion would be in order to approve borrowing up to 2.5 million under section 4512(2) of the Rhode Island General Laws. The loan would be for the projects described in the resolution. The lender would be the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, and all of these projects in this resolution do qualify under DEM for the revolving fund.
So move.
is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Aaron, as stated. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Happy holidays.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
to all.
you.
Happy holidays to you too.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, the next item on the agenda is J1. This is bid 1055, the rehabilitation for reuse of the former Wally School to create a community resource and senior center. You will note that on your dais, there is a receive at meeting. There is a memo from planner Nicholas Talk advising the council that the bid opening has been continued to January 15th.
Why is that? Do you know?
Gonna get
I
any
bet
bids?
Diane does.
Diane, why is that? Do you know?
A few reasons. One is we had requests from bidders to get a little bit more time with the holiday season. They felt that it was a little bit crunched with the scheduling. And the second reason is that we felt that if we give them a little bit more time,
Opportunities.
hopefully that will reflect in the bids.
Fair enough. Mr. Solicitor, what's the motion on this?
This be a receive and file.
We can do that, Mr. Solicitor.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mary, seconded by Tony to receive and file. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is K1. This is Discover Newport, and this is a statement of activities for September 30th and up through October 31st, 2024. Receive plan.
That's it.
Is that what we're supposed to do?
Receive and file.
Just receive and file?
I think this would be
You're supposed
receiving.
to review it and study it.
Actually, I did
Sign
review
that.
it. It was quite interesting. I'm not going to go into the details of it because it was quite a bit of activity.
Hmm.
But it was nice to see that statement and certainly make us aware of what's taking place. So with that, make a motion to receive and file.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Mary to receive and file. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is K2. This is Newport and Bristol County Convention and Visitors Bureau and Subsidiary Annual Comprehensive Financial Report for the fiscal year ending in June 30th, 2024.
Very much like the other, much information, but very informative. So I make a motion that we receive and file.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Mary. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And now the motion would be to convene into executive session pursuant to 4246(5)(a)(5) of the Rhode Island General Laws regarding discussions or considerations related to the acquisition or lease of real property for public purposes, and to convene pursuant to 4246(5)(a)(2) regarding potential litigation.
So move.
Second.
Motion made by Tony, seconded by Mary. Discussion. On behalf of this council, we wish you Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. Take care of yourself, and if you can, someone else. Thanks, everyone.
And if I may, I'll translate that very briefly. Boas festas, Feliz Natal and Feliz Ano Novo.
That's what I said. See that? All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks, everyone. Good night.